you know, when I was a teenager, adolescent, um, that was one of my biggest neurotic tics was double chin. It didn't, you know, like the rest of me was pretty overweight, or it felt pretty overweight. I had body dysmorphia, I think, but I was like, I'd walk around like this. I was like totally fucking uptight about skin under my chin, about being. I don't know. It was a weird, fucking weird distortion. Yeah, it's torturous, being such lack of self-esteem. I think what it was. I actually think what it was, you know, I'd been imprinted by my asshole mother to such a degree that I had no, and I, you know, in puberty, I had no fucking sense of myself as a male. And the only way I had, I mean, I used to go to calorie counting with my fucking mother when I was 11 and 12, you know, because I was obsessed with being overweight. I was such a neurotic girl. I mean, it is actually quite surprising I didn't turn out to be some tranny. Really. Thank God for art. Thank God for John Wayne Westerns and Diet Pepsi. and those World War II Sunday matinees, and those lingerie ads in the back of the Listener. I'd rifle through the Listener looking for fucking undies ads with the what is it? You know, the garters. Yeah. Actually, I've never been with a girl who's into garters. I reckon they're pretty hot. That's a good fetish. It's kind of secretary 1940 or something. I don't know where garters come from. It's a great idea. You know, kind of harness that, you know, sort of tie it up with some lace and shit. I don't know. I'm sure there's all sorts of genital accoutrements for chaps as well, to denote our breeding slave status to a class of noble elites from France, perhaps. I mean, yeah. So look, you know, apart from my rant about me, charming as it is, and I'm just, you know, like, I'm slightly aware that there'll be, you know, troves of gender studies women studying the monster artist, diagnosing his pathology, and you know, as a seasoned blacklisted ex-New Zealand male in our de-engineered New World Order eugenics farm, of radically naturally ignorant peasants, all dying profitably for the owners of the plantation. Dunedin's primary industry, new hospital in the middle of the town, right? Manufacturing, eh? Yeah, global, you know. TPPA. What was that signature all about? Oh, you're so amusing, Robinson, with your generalisms. You dark lord, you. So, I'm doing an artwork, which is why I haven't been murmuring to you gently about Satan and whatnot. And God. Listening to some pretty out there podcasts about transdimensional spiritual aliens that are in a kind of forever war. Bases on Earth millions of years ago, shit like that. You know, the US Army sponsor a lot of disinformation agents and sort of dress it up as kind of sci-fi spiritual narratives that segue with other popular social memes. It's entertaining stuff, and some of it, you know, because I'm an open-minded guy, I got brought up on that kind of thing. It's deep lodged mythology. You know, I do believe that we are a superstitious. Carl Sagan had this. I think he wrote a book. Carl Sagan, the prominent cosmologist, wrote a book called Demon Haunted World. And what he meant by demon was, superstitions and false beliefs and projections of our unconscious onto, natural, empirical. But at every, there are all these, scientists kind of projecting ones and zeros in the simulation of reality out there. It's they're sort of projecting their tool, their computer. Everyone thinks sort of reality is basically a form of code, and it's a sort of shorthand symbolism for, their own sort of frequency limitation. We see the world as we are. I get it, I get it from the quantum field level, but it's pretty flat, and I think there is an agenda to flatten reality. And it's a little bit like science. Sort of, unless science can sort of talk about it in its own language, then it doesn't exist, and that's just bullshit. A description isn't the thing being described, and I think the nature of reality is way more than I can describe. The thoughts that I'm privy to, I can barely articulate, and it takes me a long time to, be able to do so. I think it's got to do with sort of neurological wiring and sort of access, but and stringing things together and remembering half the time. But that's what I find so interesting about making art is, in a way, it's like art is a byproduct of being interested in a subject way beyond the art. If you're focusing on the art itself, it's usually, stifled and killed by your ego. But when you're engaged in an exploration of reality, or an attempt at understanding suffering, because there's nothing like a bit of emotional suffering, mental suffering, psychological suffering, to make you wonder, what is this, who am I, and why is it happening? Those things become sort of on an animal level necessary to deal. And of course, most of the time for me, that wires to, I believe that I'm smart enough to, it's not what has happened to the individual is actually happening inside the organism of the culture as a whole. So I tend to socialize and politicize, everything in terms of pattern and form over time. And once you get into that, you can start seeing motives and causalities. So that's what lends me to my sort of overarching kind of political take on the personal, really. I think war is pretty much a constant, and if I was a royal elite bloodline that had been existing for thousands of years, screwing over my peasants, sending them out to die for my profits, I would become an expert in psychological and spiritual and political and religious warfare to control the teeming masses. So, yeah, I believe that is the case. And I don't believe the Nazis lost the war. I believe the Nazis were engineered and created to a large extent, nudged, you might say, coerced, groomed. But I believe a lot of those corporate interests go hand in hand with the empire that, looked like it won. And I'm highly dubious of our modern precarious situation, to tell the truth. AI, robotics, cellular networks, satellite systems. I think it's entirely threatening to the human enterprise, and I think undoubtedly they have bioengineered clone bot people in labs underground walking around amongst us. Undoubtedly there's hologram technologies well known about. Undoubtedly there's atmospheric experimentation. Undoubtedly there's geoengineering. Undoubtedly there's weather war. Undoubtedly there's energy weapons. Undoubtedly there's dimensional infractions, possibly even time distortions. This is the world we live in. These things, if you can think about it in terms of a sci-fi narrative, they've done it, or they're working on it. They, James, they who control the education system, they who can put tens of billions of dollars into leading physics experiments at a whim, like if every 6 months our microchips become 50% smaller, synthetic cells have been created. I'm pretty sure there's prototype androids out there. And, are we screwed up in terms of breeding with each other? You bet we're screwed up in terms of our binary on and offs. Like, what do you think it's all about, New Zealand? Oh, women's rights. Votes for women. Uh-huh. More tax for master. No. It's about making the peasant stock obsolete and making us fractured, schizophrenic, and completely reliant on a communist state for our inputs. They don't want a resistance to their homogenized victim class. And we're good real estate. We're apparently relatively safe as a kiddie-fiddled country in the back blocks. But we're a good bunker zone in case they pull out the nuclear war trump card for whenever they disagree with each other. When the owners in their perpetual argument with each other about how to govern the world with the UN and the EU and the and the technocratic banking derivatives, inflationary, satanic ego casino of your soul system. But the cat doesn't mind about any of it, and it's quite good existing. I'm making a work. I'm making a good work. I've been enjoying it. I've been visited by women every night in my dreams. Always a good sign. And the work feels like a bunch of barbarian warriors or a troop of AWOL survivor Romans in some frontier survivor battle, doing magic. It feels like a troop of guys in varying states of psychological decomposition, but they're hanging in there as ghouls, and they're heavy magic users, and they cut limbs off for sport or for necessity. It's a warrior gang, and they've been around, and they're good at what they do. I didn't set out to do that. It's not overtly violent, the work. It's more like a kind of portrait of a gang of hardened, munted warriors, in an abstract form, in an organic abstract form. So I'm getting to know those guys. They're pretty demanding fucks. Yeah, well, that's me. I hope I left some bullet points for my gender studies girlfriends. Swing by in my astral realm anytime you like. I like the red dresses. And good day to you, madam.